It was a cold Chicago evening. The sky was hovering between gray and black. The streetlights cast pale lights that made the wet asphalt shiver. A man walked into a coffee shop on the south side of the city with a notebook in his hand. The tables were nearly empty. A boy in the corner was buried in his coat, his hands chapped around his mug. The man stopped before he approached. The boy looked up. Their eyes met. The moment had happened. And years later, it would only be in someone's book, but without a name, without a thank you, as if it had never happened. Barack Obama was not yet president at the time. He wasn't even in politics. He had returned to Chicago after graduating from Harvard, working in community organizing, and at the same time, he was writing his first book, Dreams from My Father. The book would tell the story of who he was, his past, his quest. But other faces, other stories would come in between. He wrote some, he just listened to some, and some, he kept them forever. The boy's name was Jamal Carter. That day at the cafe, he had only asked for a hot drink, but the man sitting across from him had different intentions. Obama put his pen on the notebook. "I want to ask you something," he said. "But you tell me first. Tell me about yourself. What do you think about this city, about this life?" Jamal was silent at first, but then he started talking. What he was telling was not a children's story. He talked about a brother trying to survive in the middle of drug streets, about the men who kidnapped his mother in the morning, and about a boy who tried not to stop praying every morning before dawn. Obama took notes, but occasionally he just listened. That night when Jamal got home, he told others about the man. "A stranger, he listens very well," he said. "His face is quiet, but his mind is noisy." But time passed. That man never came back, and Jamal's story was never heard by anyone again, until years later when he saw that book on the shelves in a bookstore. Dreams from My Father. There was a familiar face on the cover, and on the back cover this sentence, "This book is my story, my journey, and the voices of the people I met on the way." Jamal turned the pages, and on page 148, he read the same thing he had told, but he had no name. That day, Jamal was the first and last person to go to a bookstore in his neighborhood. He bought the book, he read it, he didn't cry, but he wrote one sentence on paper. "You didn't forget my name, you just didn't write it down." And he put that sentence in an envelope. On the back, he wrote, "You know who you talked to." He didn't mail the envelope to the White House. He didn't send it to any newspapers. He just kept it, for years, quietly. In 2023, a night shift anchor at a small radio station in Chicago noticed a strange message among the emails he was receiving. Its title, "He Never Wrote My Name." The email was short and to the point. "In 1989, a man asked me what I thought. So I told him. He wrote, but he never wrote my name. Now I write." At the end of the email was a link to a voice memo. The anchor clicked on it, and he heard the words, "You didn't forget my name, you just didn't write it." The audio recording quickly went viral on social media. It was unclear who sent it. But many people realized that those words were a real response. Voice analysis showed that the person was a man around 40 years old who grew up on the south side of Chicago. And the most remarkable part, Obama said the following in a 2004 interview, "There was a kid I met on the street, small but mature. He summed up my life for me in one sentence. I still have that sentence in my notebook." Everyone was now asking, who was that kid? And if the audio recording was real. Why was he talking now? Jamal didn't write anything that night. He put his phone on silent, turned off the lights. He just looked out the window. In the flickering light of the streetlights, he imagined himself sitting in that same chair years ago. But it was different back then. He was young, he was only 12, and that day he had spoken to Obama. He had thought his life could be written for the first time, but it wasn't, or half-written. Just 3 days after the radio recording went viral in Chicago, reporters from NPR, ProPublica, and the Chicago Tribune began investigating the incident. The owner of the voice remained anonymous, but the audio analysis was clear. The voice sounded 96% like a man who had attended a fundraiser the previous year. His name, Jamal Carter. And the location, Englewood neighborhood. Leah Moore, a reporter for the Tribune, was the first person to reach Jamal, but when she knocked on his door, it wasn't him. Her mother, old but upright, was not the kind of person who would let a stranger in. Leah held out her card. "We just want to listen without mentioning your name," she said. The woman fell silent. Then she bowed her head. "Jamal's not home," she said. "He doesn't want to talk to anyone anyway. But when he spoke years ago, no one wrote." As Leah was leaving the door, someone called from downstairs. "Is this about that page?" Leah turned around. A short-haired, slender man was standing there. He didn't have a notebook in his hand, but his gaze showed the weariness of carrying things for years. "Yes," Leah said. "Page 148. They sat down together in an empty park. Jamal didn't speak. Leah opened the page first. He read it out loud. "A child told me about the hardships his family went through. He had no father. His mother worked 2 jobs, but that child still got up every morning and went to school. It's hard to dream," he said, "but if we don't dream, we just wake up, and waking up is pointless." Leah paused. "Was that what you said?" Jamal smiled. "I was 12. We talked to him for 23 minutes. He took notes in his notebook. He adjusted his glasses and said, 'I'll write that down.' But he didn't ask my name, and I didn't ask why." That sentence appeared on page 148 of the book. But it was as if the author had never met that child. Jamal didn't tell the story for years. He kept quiet when Obama became president. He kept quiet when his second term ended. But by 2023, he was 40. And the fact that her story remained anonymous in just one line was gnawing at her insides. Because that line wasn't a writer's line, it was the summary of her life. Leah asked, "Why did you speak up now?" Jamal looked up. "I just wanted someone to say, 'Did you say that?' No one has asked in years, but I still wake up every morning, and I still dream." That same day, Leah prepared the story, but before it went to print, she reached out to Obama's publisher. The agent sent a short response. "The person mentioned on page 148 is anonymous. The identity of the source is known but not disclosed without explicit consent." That sentence shocked Jamal even more. So it was known, but it wasn't written, on purpose. The following week, Leah's interview was published. Its headline, "The Kid on Page 148 Speaks." The news quickly spread nationwide. Some criticized Obama for suppressing the voice. Others said, yeah, the kid was immortalized in a sentence. But for Jamal, it wasn't about politics or advertising. He just wanted a sentence to be returned to its owner. 2 days later, a letter arrived in the back room of a small Chicago bookstore. It had no envelope. It had only 2 letters, B.O. The paper read, "I remember what you said that day, and page 148 is never complete, but some sentences, when written, are incomplete. Yours." I knew it by heart. There was no signature at the bottom, but the handwriting was familiar. And Jamal didn't smile as he read that letter. He just opened his notebook. He opened a new page, and he captioned it, "Finally, I am writing." Jamal's hand trembled slightly when he opened the notebook. After all these years, he would finally start writing his own story, but this time not from someone else's pen, but from his own. There would be no hints, no quotes, no shadows in his own lines, only the truth. He took the letter and attached it to the first page of the notebook. I had it memorized. This word kept ringing in his head. On one hand, gratitude. On the other hand, bitterness. Because it was not enough for some things to remain memorized. Some things had to be said openly. Some names had to be written. After Leah published the news, she wrote a second article. This time it was personal. In her column, she said the following: "No matter who the source of the stories is, telling them should not be the responsibility of the writers alone. Sometimes the owner of the story waits for years to get his own voice back, and sometimes that wait ends on the first page of a notebook. A few days after that article, an assistant on Obama's team contacted Jamal, a brief informal note. "We'd like to talk about page 148, a quiet, informal conversation, if you will. Just 2 chairs, a table, a reminder." Jamal thought about it for 2 days. Then he agreed. The meeting took place in the back room of a historic civic center in Chicago. The room was in an old wooden structure that had hosted volunteer meetings in the 1980s. Jamal arrived early. He was wearing a simple jacket, his notebook in his bag. When the door opened, there was silence. The sound of his footsteps echoed. Obama entered. He didn't extend his hand. He just bowed his head. "I remember you." Jamal didn't answer. He sat down at the table. Obama was across from him. There was no camera, no press, just 2 people. Years later, looking into each other's eyes for the first time, Obama began to speak. "You said a sentence to me that day. The sentence changed me. I wrote it, but I didn't write your name because sometimes I thought a sentence was bigger than a name." Jamal didn't look away. "But no one thought that sentence belonged to me, and I kept quiet about that sentence every day for 20 years because someone else claimed it." Silence. Then Obama leaned in. "You're right, and that's why I came. A new edition of the book is being prepared. Page 148 won't change, but page 149 will be yours. Your sentence will finally have its name." Jamal's eyes misted over slightly. There was no anger or triumph on his face, just closure. A month later, a special 25th anniversary edition of Dreams from My Father was published. The new preface at the beginning of the book included the following lines. "Years ago, a child told me the world in one sentence. I wrote that sentence, but I didn't write his name. That missing piece has been completed in this edition. This page is his, to Jamal Carter. If we don't dream, even waking up is pointless." When the first comments came online, one wrote, "Sometimes a sentence stays alone for years, but then its owner comes back." And that day, Jamal wrote on the second page of his notebook, "Other people have written my name now. Now I will write other children's names." A year later, a name was given to a writing workshop for young people in Chicago, page 149. The first lesson of the workshop began. Jamal went to the board and he asked, "Is there anyone among you who has never told their story to anyone?" Hands went up, and Jamal smiled. "Then let's start writing."